Hey, Marvelous Joe here. You guys like comics, right? How about winning the original Marvel vs. DC comic series from the 90s? Well, Jonathan and I were able to collect all 4 issues in mint condition, bagged and boarded, and we want to gift them to one lucky listener out there. Getting your name in our drawing is easy. All you have to do is share a link to your favorite episode of this podcast and tag us in the post or story. Super simple. You can do this on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Again, share your favorite episode, tag us, and you're on your way to winning some free comics. Once we see your post, we'll add your name to the hat and draw the winner on Thanksgiving Day 2019. You have until then to post. Looking forward to seeing what your favorite episodes of this podcast are. On with the show. Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And we're back with another Duel episode. This time we're pitting the Metalmen against Colossus. And I should clarify, it's just going to be one of the Metalmen, not all of them.
Although I'm pretty sure Colossus could take them all on.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, because he's that badass.
We'll see. We're pitting these guys against each other because Colossus will be a part of our Titans vs. X-Men episode that is coming up
in just 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's coming up really soon.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun. I want sweet, sweet revenge ever since our Justice League vs. Avengers Duel episode. Can't wait for it.
Before we get into the duel, we will be breaking down the comic book movie news items from the past week, including all of the news that came out of the HBO Max presentation.
Yeah, there was a lot there.
Oh yeah, can't wait to talk about it. We'll also be talking about some new Marvel film release dates, including Ant-Man 3 and the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse sequel.
As always, you can go ahead and check out our segment times in our episode description. If you want to skip ahead to a particular topic, feel free to do that. We want to give a quick shout out to all the people who have rated us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. We're up to 168 ratings and that much closer to our goal of 200 ratings on iTunes.
32 away.
Yeah, big shout out to Marvel is Better, Sorry Johnny.
The fuck kind of name is that?
It's the greatest iTunes handle.
I haven't seen that yet. What?
Also, thank you to Kayla O and Neil306928.
And also Dordulu
for leaving us reviews on Apple Podcasts. As you guys know, we're trying to get to 200 because at that point, Rotten Tomatoes says we're eligible to have our reviews count towards those films' official tomato meters on that website. So it's a huge goal of ours. If you guys could help us out by either giving us a rating on iTunes if you haven't already, or by sharing the show with your friends and family. Super appreciated. Can't thank you guys enough. But now that that's done,
on to the news.
No.
Quick, to the No Prize. So, a No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that I personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week's question was, out of the canceled and potentially canceled Marvel television shows, which one will you miss the most?
Was in regards to all of the Marvel television show cancellations that are being brought about due to the rise of the Disney Plus platform. We got quite a few great answers here. First honorable mention goes to Sana Farhumand, who said that he will miss Daredevil the most because he was a big fan of Charlie Cox and he wanted to get another season to see if Elektra had survived the end of the Defenders show.
Oh crap, I totally forgot about that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
No! Ryan Reynolds also gave the answer of Daredevil and included The Punisher as well.
Yeah, those were both great, fantastic shows. Gonna miss them. It's hard to think that as excited as I am for the Disney Plus series to come out, the cost of Disney having their own streaming platform was these great Netflix shows.
Yeah, like, are we ever going to see John Bernthal as the Punisher again? He was perfect.
I hope so. Honorable mention goes to Dustin Balcom, who said that he misses the Punisher because John Bernthal was perfect. And he played a great tortured Frank Castle.
Joel Seagrave gets honorable mention for his answer of Daredevil and the Punisher.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, they were both good that both ended on high notes.
Jimmy Woodchick said that he misses the Defenders the most because all the shows were connected no matter how good or bad they were all built up together and he liked that shared television universe. Kenneth McNeese Jr. said that he would miss Jessica Jones the most because he said that it surpassed the comic book world and dealt with PTSD, abuse, and it was a show that revealed that not all superheroes wear tights, finally stating that it gave a voice to the voiceless.
All great points. I was a huge fan of the Jessica Jones show. And yeah, he's right. It touched on issues that a whole lot of other superhero media never even come close to.
And finally, Carmen Rodriguez gets honorable mention for her answer of Agent Carter. She said she will forever be upset that that show got canceled.
Right, and that was another case, I think, of a show that gave voice to the voiceless. You know, it was all about women empowerment, just like Jessica Jones was. Although Agent Carter was a lot more lighthearted and fun. And Hayley Atwell was just fantastic in that role. I can't wait to see her What If episode coming up in a couple of years. But the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Jeff Miles Jr. for his answer of Cloak and Dagger. Now, that was a show that was a direct casualty of Marvel's changing of the guard in their executive lineup.
Yeah, this was a result of Kevin Feige being named as Chief Creative Officer as opposed to just Disney Plus trying to compete with Netflix.
Right. And Jeff said that he was a fan of the show because of the great chemistry between the two leads. Those kids had amazing chemistry, and the show dealt with social issues such as police brutality and women empowerment and poverty. It was just an amazing show that was perfect for this time and a great adaptation of those characters. If you guys haven't listened to our Duel episode where we pit Cloak and Dagger against the Wonder Twins, check that episode out because we had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah.
So congrats to Jeff Miles Jr. Actually, I learned that Jeff is a professional artist, a professional painter, and you can check out his work on themilescollective.com. He's currently working on an Obama Batman, which I imagine is kind of like the Obama Hope poster, but with Batman.
Oh,
I think that's the case.
That's cool.
Or it might just be Obama wearing the cowl. So again, visit themilescollective.com to check out his art. And congrats again, Jeff, for winning the No Prize. If you, the listener, want to win your own Dynamic Duel No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. With that out of the way,
on to the news.
Look, you got it right that time.
Yay! Okay, so HBO Max had a huge presentation this past week, of which they released a ton of information regarding their DC content, starting with the fact that they're launching with every single DC film.
Wow.
Including the new Joker film.
That's a lot. I don't even think the DC Universe app does that.
No, they don't. There's a lot of films that haven't made it onto DC Universe yet, including the big ones like Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Justice League.
Really?
Yeah, they're still not on that platform.
Wow. What a ripoff. So it seems like part of the news regarding HBO Max is that people who are currently subscribed to HBO Now will have their subscription rolled over into HBO Max. And they'll get like quadruple the content for the same price point, which is $14.99 a month.
Exactly.
Which is huge. Yeah.
It is huge. I thought we were going to get charged more for HBO Max than for HBO Now, but it turns out you're right. HBO Now is just folding under HBO Max. So if you're currently subscribed to HBO Now,
congrats.
You'll be getting the new HBO Max content when it releases in spring of 2020.
Now, the big question is what's going to happen to the DC Universe subscribers? Because it seems like that platform is going to go away. That's what the rumor is.
Well, it's just a rumor for now. DC Universe actually sent out their own sort of letter to all of its subscribers saying, hey, we're super excited by what HBO Max revealed today. We're still here. We're still producing content. We're just getting started. So
I think what DC should do is offer their HBO Max content at that price point and have all DC video content there, but roll over their comic stuff into a separate subscription into kind of like what Marvel Unlimited does.
And how much is that? That's like $5-6 a month?
Yeah, it's like $70 a year.
So around the same price as DC Universe right now, a little bit cheaper.
Right, exactly. So for $5 a month, you get access to all DC's digital comics. And for $14.99 a month, you get access to HBO Max.
So the one thing you get with DC Universe that, as far as we know, won't be in HBO Max is all of their like animated content and their social hub.
Does anyone even use the social hub?
I guess they just revamped it. I don't know. I honestly have not used it that much yet.
Okay.
Now, it's said that HBO Max will be releasing 8 to 10 exclusive feature films a year just to that platform. And some of that content is going to be DC feature films, which are supposedly going to be produced by Greg Berlanti and J.J. Abrams.
Wow, that's a good duo there. Greg Berlanti is the guy that produces the Arrowverse shows.
Right.
And J.J. Abrams, of course,
is the master of the reboot.
Is it going to be a reboot?
We don't know yet. I think, honestly, it's probably up to him. whether or not he wants to do a straight reboot or continue on with the current actors.
Well, I hope he keeps Gal Gadot on and Jason Momoa.
And Zachary Levi.
Right, yeah, they were all great.
Now, Greg Berlanti will also be producing a Green Lantern series for HBO Max and a Strange Adventures anthology series, which is said to touch on a bunch of different characters and settings within the DC universe. That's amazing.
I don't care about Strange Adventures. I'm really excited about Green Lantern, though.
I'm excited for both.
Yeah.
Of course, Greg Berlanti was one of the writers on the Green Lantern film that starred Ryan Reynolds. Mm-hmm. But their initial script was apparently very different from the final product. And it was apparently really, really good. So despite his history with Green Lantern in live action, I'm still really excited for that show.
Interesting. Wouldn't it be weird if Warner Brothers abandons the DCEU and just makes the current CW Arrowverse shows like the mainstream DC continuity? Because if the Green Lantern series is produced by Greg Berlanti, it's possible that it's in the Arrowverse, and then you just have all the characters that you need within the television shows. Build on that continuity that you already have going so well, especially with the upcoming Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover.
Well, I was just about to say, the beautiful thing about that crossover is that Warner Brothers can kind of have their cake and eat it too, because you could say that everything is just a part of their multiverse now.
Yeah, but will they reduce it down to one reality at the end of that show?
Interesting question. Probably not, because some CW shows will still be continuing, and they're launching new ones. They announced recently that they're developing a Superman and Lois Lane television series.
I heard that, yeah.
For next season.
That's pretty cool. They should call that one Lois and Clark, The Newer Adventures of Superman.
There you go. They're also developing a new show called Green Arrow and the Canaries.
Really?
Yeah, Green Arrow is going to be a woman. I think it's Oliver Queen's daughter from the future.
What?
And the two women who played Black Canary in the past are going to be like her teammates.
Interesting. Regarding the Green Lantern show, is it going to star Hal Jordan, or is it going to be like set out in space with the Green Lantern Corps?
We don't actually know yet.
I hope it's set in the DCEU and it's just about the Corps, and then that way they don't need to set up all that stuff when they create a Hal Jordan-based Green Lantern movie for theaters.
That would be cool. Just kind of have the series like lead up to the film.
Yeah.
Although it's rumored that Kyle Rayner will be the star of the show. That's just a rumor for now. In other interesting news, Elizabeth Banks will be producing a half-hour sitcom for HBO Max called DC Superhero High that's supposed to focus around DC superheroes while they're still in high school.
What the hell is that?
I'm pretty sure it's inspired by DC Superhero Girls.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd rather have Powerless back. It had a better premise than this.
I'm not thrilled by this news. We'll see how it goes.
You're not the target demographic,
no,
to be fair.
I'm definitely not, yeah. Doom Patrol Season 2 will be released on HBO Max concurrently with its release on the DC Universe. Which makes sense, because Doom Patrol is sort of like the darling television show of DC Universe. It's the most successful, critically acclaimed show on that platform.
More than Titans?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So these shows are going to be released weekly, or are they going to be bingeable?
They will not be bingeable, unfortunately. It's going to be a weekly release schedule.
Damn it.
Just like Disney Plus, so we won't be reviewing them.
Well, I wonder now if Disney Plus is going to be releasing their shows weekly and HBO Max is going to be releasing their DC shows weekly, should we change the format of this show to start including those shows released on those platforms?
That feels like a lot of television watching, but we could always stream it like all at once the season wraps and talk about it then.
Yeah, I think that might be something we should start doing now, honestly.
I second that motion. Once the shows on those platforms drop, we'll start reviewing them.
Okay, at the end of their run.
Yeah. Finally, I could get you to watch some DC TV.
Well, I just really want to review the new Marvel shows, so that's why I'm saying that.
That kind of wraps up all of the DC-related news for HBO Max, but I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for spring 2020. I'm definitely getting HBO Max, definitely canceling my Netflix subscription because it's just way too much money.
Yeah.
And I think I'll be pretty happy with HBO Max. Not only because of the DC content, but because of all of the other shows and content that they'll have.
Yeah, seems like a pretty damn good deal. Great competitor to Disney Plus.
For sure. This brings us to our question of the week. Name a new DC television series that you hope gets developed for HBO Max. Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
In other news, we learned this past week that Ant-Man 3 has been greenlit and that Peyton Reed will be returning to direct that movie.
As will Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that Evangeline Lilly will be back to return as well, since everybody else is, and they're probably contracted. I'm super excited about this news. As you guys know, Ant-Man and the Wasp wasn't my favorite MCU film. I think they missed a lot of opportunities with it, and the film didn't really have that much emotional heft. That being said, I still had a lot of fun with it. I think Peyton Reed brings a lot of great ideas when it comes to the concept of shrinking and growing to his films. It's always a blast, and I think Peyton Reed has done a serviceable job with these films so far. I couldn't really honestly imagine anyone else handling these films with the same tone and the same breeziness that he has.
Yeah, Michael Douglas is saying that they start filming January 2021, so that probably means this will be in Phase 5, right?
Right, yeah, it'll be coming out sometime in 2022.
As will the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse sequel.
Right, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be coming out April 8th, 2022. We're not sure if the same directorial team is coming back. I kind of would like to see the film be directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller instead of just produce the movie this time. But either way, I'll be super excited because I just absolutely love the first Into the Spider-Verse movie, and I'm really excited as to where they will go with it in this sequel. Like, will we get to see Miguel O'Hara play a larger role? He's Spider-Man 2099, and he played a brief cameo at the end credit scene of the first film.
Right.
I'd like to see, like, honestly, the entire cast from the first one come back and then go on an even larger adventure.
I'm actually really surprised that the sequel is coming out that late.
Well, they put a lot of work into that film. It takes a while to make an animated film of that particular style and caliber. Also, you just want to make sure that they get the script right, because the script for the first movie was just amazing.
Yeah, it was. That makes sense.
There's not too much more to talk about regarding Ant-Man or Spider-Verse, considering that these were just announced, but just something to look forward to. I wanted to share that with you guys because I'm definitely excited about it. But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event where we find out who would win in a fight between the Metal Man and Colossus of the X-Men.
All right, Metal Man versus Colossus. Now, I'm not gonna lie, we've wanted to do a Colossus match for a while, but I have the hardest time coming up with DC characters whose sole power is just that they're strong.
Right. We've come across this issue a few times, but I think we've done well so far. I'm really excited that you chose the Metal Man. I almost completely forgot that the Metal Men were a thing until you brought them up again. And I was like, oh yeah, I freaking love those guys. Those are hilarious. This is a perfect match, I think. Hopefully it's a perfect match.
Yeah, we'll find out once we run the simulations. But I chose the Metal Men because they're metal and they're men. And what is Colossus but a metal man?
He is the literal Man of Steel. Fuck Superman.
What? Why are you bringing Superman in this? Why you gotta throw shade? Superman would annihilate Colossus. I don't know what you're talking about.
Whatever.
Before we get into the simulations between Metal Men and Colossus, if you haven't listened to one of our episodes before, the way we find out the winner is stat-based simulations.
Right, we take each character's statistics, which are laid out for Marvel from the official Marvel Power Rankings grid, and we extrapolate DC stats from that criteria that they set up.
And we incorporate a few more statistics just to make a more robust simulation.
Right, such as range and evasiveness, and we take those numbers and we run them through what's called a Monte Carlo simulation, which randomizes those figures along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, and compares them against each other 1,000 times, which simulates 1,000 battles. And from those results, we get a percentage of wins for each character. Now, no character ever wins 100% of the time, which we feel is fairly true to the comic books themselves. You know, Batman has always found a way to beat Superman, even though statistically, Superman would make Batman a smear.
Right, and the Monte Carlo simulation accounts for any variable that would allow one character to win over another.
So we feel it's a very scientific, unbiased, mathematical approach to the question of who would win. It's the same approach that the old Spike television show Deadliest Warrior used to take about 5-10 years ago.
So we don't consider fan votes, we don't take into account uncharacteristic feats of strength, it's just all base stats.
Right, and before we run these simulations, we like to go into the histories and abilities of each character that we're pitting against each other. So I think I go first this time with the character of Colossus, so let me go ahead and tell you all about that character.
Now, Colossus is the X-Men's resident strongman, but like the best X-Men characters, Colossus goes against type by also being one of the most kind-hearted, artistic, and pacifist members of the team. He may be one of the strongest mutants alive, but instead of reveling in that, he has always been a man to focus most on the people in his life that he loves, including his family, as in his immediate family, but also his surrogate X-Men family. Pyotr Nikolaevich Rasputin grew up on his family farm in Siberia, Russia, formerly the Soviet Union. He was the middle child of the family. His older brother was a famed Russian cosmonaut named Mikhail, and his little sister was named Ilyana, who would later be known as the mutant Magic. In fact, all of the Rasputin children were mutants, a seeming coincidence that was in fact manipulated through eugenics and selective breeding by the Soviet government and the X-Men villain Mr. Sinister. The Russians groomed Pyotr's older brother to be in their space program in an effort to test and study his mutant potential, and Mikhail seemingly died in a space explosion that in actuality sent him to another dimension. Pyotr decided he would have to become twice the son and brother for his family after Mikhail's death, and took on a lot of work at their family farm. His mutant abilities first manifested as he was working in the fields and saw that a runaway tractor was about to run over his sister. He jumped into the path of the machine to shield her, yet neither he nor Ilyana were harmed. He found that his skin had transformed into organic steel, and his indestructible body had saved both their lives. The act caught the attention of Professor Charles Xavier, who was using Cerebro to find a new team of mutants to recruit and rescue the original X-Men from the sentient island of Krakoa. With his family's blessing, Pyotr left the farm and moved to Westchester, living at Xavier's School for the Gifted and given the codename Colossus. He found living in the US hard to adapt to at first and would often write letters home to his family, but he eventually developed close bonds with Storm, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler. During a fight with the villain Arcade, whom you can learn more about in our Riddler vs. Arcade Duel episode, Pyotr's sister was kidnapped. The team rescued Ilyana, and he asked Professor X if she could live at the school where he could better protect her. Professor X agreed, and Ilyana became the first non-mutant to study at Xavier's school, though Charles held strong suspicions that she too would one day manifest mutant abilities, which she would, and become a key member of the New Mutants team as Magic. Happy to have some of his family now living with him, Pyotr grew close to his teammate Kitty Pryde. The attraction was mutual, but both were too shy at the time to act on it. After the events of the Dark Phoenix saga, which you can learn more about in our Raven vs. Phoenix duel, Pyotr learned that his parents were killed and his sister was kidnapped by the Soviets in an effort to control Ilyana's powers. He and the X-Men were able to save her, however upon Ilyana's return, she became the first to be infected with the Legacy virus, a deadly strain released by the villain Strife that was fatal to mutants. She died from the disease and Pyotr was devastated. In his grief, he joined Magneto's ranks as one of his acolytes. Eventually, he became disillusioned with Magneto's ways and he joined his teammates Nightcrawler and Shadowcat on the European mutant team Excalibur, before the team dissolved and the three moved back to the United States. Beast managed to find a cure for the Legacy virus, though in order for it to work, it needed to be injected into living tissue in a likely fatal process. And you can learn more about this in our Beast Boy vs. Beast episode. In secret, Colossus injected the cure in honor of his sister Ilyana, sacrificing himself for her and for all of mutant kind. His body was cremated and Kitty Pryde scattered his ashes over his old Siberian farm. However, it later turned out that Pyotr's body was stolen and experimented on by aliens from Breakworld before it was cremated. Their experiments resurrected him, and he was eventually discovered by the X-Men and rescued by Kitty Pryde, and the two began a romantic relationship. During the events of House of M, where the Scarlet Witch recreated reality in a fit of madness brought on by the secret manipulations of Doctor Doom, Colossus' sister Ilyana was brought back from the dead. She and Pyotr retained their powers at the end of that arc during M-Day, when the Scarlet Witch removed most of the world's mutant powers. During the Avengers vs. X-Men story, the Phoenix Force returned to Earth for its new host, the first child to be born after M-Day, named Hope. The Avengers deemed the Phoenix a threat, while the X-Men saw it as a means to restore mutants of their powers, and a rift between the two teams was formed. Iron Man created a weapon that scattered the Phoenix Force into 5 fragments, which inhabited 5 mutants, who became known as the Phoenix Five.
Pyotr and Ilyana were 2 of these mutants.
Oh, wow.
Pyotr eventually saw how they were becoming corrupted by their new power, and the siblings fought and knocked each other out, releasing the Phoenix power from them. In the end, Hope acquired the Phoenix Force and used it to restore the powers of former mutants on Earth. During this time, Pyotr also wielded the Crimson Bands of Cytoric, and therefore had the Juggernaut's powers, which he used to stop Cain Marko, who had abandoned Cytoric and served the Serpent, aka Kull, the Asgardian god of fear. The Crimson Bands began influencing destructive tendencies in Pyotr, however, and Ilyana was able to free him of the demon entity's curse by teleporting her brother to Limbo and removing the bonds. He returned to Siberia to work peacefully as a farmer and a painter, before being convinced by his sister to return and help mutant kind in their fight for survival during the time the Terrigen Mists had been released into the atmosphere by the Inhuman King Black Bolt. They were causing mutants to fall ill and die. After Pyotr joined the fight against the Inhumans, their queen Medusa destroyed the Terrigen Cloud, ending the skirmish. Kitty Pryde later proposed to Pyotr, but eventually backed out, believing that despite the fact that they loved each other, their past didn't leave a good foundation for a lifelong marriage.
What?
And that's his history.
Dang.
Cold-blooded. Powers-wise, Colossus can convert the tissues of his body into organic steel metal, as strong and durable as osmium steel. Everything, including his internal organs and eyeballs, become incredibly dense and durable. The transformation grants him super strength, making him able to lift 100 tons, and grants him peak human speed, where he's able to run 35 miles per hour. He utilizes judo and wrestling techniques when fighting hand-to-hand, and has received some martial arts training from Wolverine. And that's all of his powers.
Colossus is a cool character. He has an interesting backstory.
Yeah.
Usually in these Duel episodes, we find similarities in the characters' backstories that we had no idea existed.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen this time.
I thought you were going to say that there were a lot of similarities.
No, not at all.
Well, yeah, I'm interested in learning about the Metal Men. They're kind of one of the more obscure DC characters that we've done.
Yeah, for sure.
Although I would say they're fairly well known to most DC Comics fans.
Yeah, they should be. The story of the Metal Men actually goes back thousands of years, when Atlantis sank beneath the sea waters and took their knowledge of magic and the arcane with them. Soon after Atlantis sank, a group of wannabe alchemists formed a group known as the Acolytes of Mu, who sought to find the quote-unquote soul of matter, known as the quintessence, because they believed that if they could find the element's soul, they could control the element. One of the Alkalites was named Simon Magnus, who discovered the ancient Atlantean mode of communicating with matter while studying Atlantean scrolls, and he forged an artifact known as the Wheel of the World, which allowed him to transform and control elements. He made the mistake of showing his creation to the other Acolytes, who immediately tried to kill him for the wheel. Realizing that whoever controlled the wheel could rule the world, Simon hid it before he was killed, and the wheel was lost in time. Ages passed, and Simon's descendant in the current century, Dr. Will Magnus, was a scientific prodigy and inventor who studied under Dr. Thomas Oscar Morrow, who would later become the scientific supervillain genius T.O. Morrow, or Tomorrow.
Dumb.
Will's work made him very wealthy early in life, and his discoveries led to the foundation of the scientific field of elementics, an amalgam of chemistry and robotic science that worked toward the creation of artificial life. Call it genetic memory or destiny, Will unknowingly recreated a version of the Wheel of the World as a small microcomputer called a responsometer, which he placed in a robot made of platinum, which he was able to afford.
Wow.
The intelligence that the platinum robot exhibited was far beyond what Will expected, however, as the robot, nicknamed Tina, thought and behaved like a human woman, even going so far as to confess her love for Will.
Weird.
Though Will rebuffed her advances, he did, at her request and out of his own curiosity.
Oh god, gross. Where's this going?
Make more like her.
Oh, thank god.
Jeez. Will made new robots made of gold, mercury, iron, lead, and tin. I guess that was all he was able to afford by that point. Each of who also unexpectedly emerged with their own personalities once he fitted them with a responsometer. Gold was noble and smart, Platinum was passionate, Mercury was snarky, Iron was brave, Lead was dim-witted or dense, get it?
Yep.
And Tin was insecure, but friendly. Will realized that the responsometers brought out the innate soul of the matter itself, and the robots were exhibiting the character of the elements they were made of. Under the direction of Will and the leadership of Gold, the Metalmen fought other robots and monsters spawned from weird science, including the Missile Men, the Gas Gang, and the Plastic Perils.
Wow, they just loved alliteration, huh?
Though their arch nemesis was a giant chemical monster known as Chemo. The Metalmen were destroyed in almost every adventure and battle they went into, but their willingness to sacrifice themselves to protect innocence inspired Will to repeatedly rebuild them after recovering their responsometers. Other Metalmen were created throughout the years, including Platinum Man, who went rogue and joined the Missile Men. There was Copper, a sarcastic sister robot for the others, who was created later in the team's career, and whom Will often forgot to rebuild whenever the team was destroyed.
What? That's messed up.
And there was Nameless, another Tin creation created by Tin, who wanted a girlfriend. Nameless was thought to have been destroyed when she asked Will to recreate her into something beautiful, and her responsometer burned out in the process. But it turned out Platinum Man salvaged her and kept her as his prisoner for years. With the help of Batman, the Metalmen rescued Nameless, and she and Tin were married, though Nameless was destroyed in an explosion immediately after the ceremony in an effort to protect her husband and friends from the Missile Men.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, Tin can never catch a break.
Aw.
So the Metalmen fought alongside other DC heroes to stop the Omax cyborg invasion during the Infinite Crisis storyline. They were destroyed, of course, and Will was captured by the country of Carnia, where he was tortured and brainwashed. He was eventually rescued by the US military, for whom he began working, but Carnia was able to use Will's research to create Plutonium Man, a radioactive Metalman who was eventually defeated by the recreated Metalmen once again at the cost of their own lives. Due to the torture and mental stress he endured, Will had a psychological breakdown, was diagnosed as bipolar, and was no longer able to remember how to get the responsometers to work. As he recovered, Will often visited his former mentor and friend, Tio Morrow, who was in prison and who clued him onto a conspiracy involving the disappearance of mad scientists. Morrow went missing soon after, though he left for Will the missing code to get his responsometers working again. Before he could use the code, however, Will was also captured and taken to Oolong Island, where Intergang was forcing scientists to create weapons for them. During his imprisonment, Will scrounged small bits of metal to create miniature 1-inch Metalmen that helped him escape.
That's cool.
Later, Will's evil brother David used a device stolen from T.O. Morrow to transform the Metalmen into the Death Metalmen.
What? Oh my god, I love this.
Made up of uranium, strontium, thorium, radium, polonium, and fermium.
And they were a band.
Will was able to reverse the process, however, and defeat his brother. In the New 52, Will started off as a government contractor tasked with creating artificially intelligent search and rescue robots that could withstand hazardous or toxic environments. Will created the responsometer and the Metalmen, though when he learned the government was going to use them as assassins, the Metalmen fled and hid in his apartment. In the chaos, someone stole one of his responsometers and dropped it into a vat of toxic waste, which created the new version of Chemo. The Metalmen sacrificed themselves to destroy Chemo, again, before they were brought back to help Cyborg take on the artificially intelligent system known as Grid. Now, powers-wise, each of the Metalmen have full control over the atoms that make up their bodies, thanks to their responsometers, which again basically brings consciousness to the element it's in. They can stretch and shape their bodies, though someone like Mercury finds this much easier to do than Lead. They're also extremely durable and strong, though there's a spectrum there as well. Iron is much stronger than Tin. In the Rebirth era of DC, some of the better electrical conductors, like Iron, have been able to incorporate other tech into their bodies, allowing them to form energy cannons and the like. Now for this match, I won't be using any integrated tech, And I won't be using all of the Metal Men because I don't think that's a fair match.
Okay.
I'm going to send in Iron to represent the Metal Men against Colossus because, like Colossus, he's sort of the group's resident strongman.
Is Lead not the resident strongman? He's like the big brute guy, right?
So Lead is good when he's defending them against like radioactive attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's a good defense man. But like when it comes to like the strength of metals, there's really 4 factors you have to take into consideration. And I forget the names of each, but it's essentially like squeezability, stretchability, like scratchability, and like shatterability.
Okay.
So lead is actually really easy to scratch. It's nowhere near as strong as iron in a lot of those factors.
Okay. But Iron is still malleable, right, as a character?
Yeah, iron can shapeshift.
Cool. What about Gold? Gold is the team leader, right?
Yeah, but gold as a metal is actually pretty weak.
Okay. Yeah, Colossus would just stamp him into the ground. Anyway.
I don't know about that.
All right, so you're sending out Iron as the representative of the Metal Men team. So it's going to be Iron versus Colossus.
Which isn't as good of an episode title as Metal Men versus Colossus.
So before we run the Monte Carlo simulations on these character stats, what we like to do is improvise and speculate on a scenario in which the characters actually fight.
Now, we don't set a ton of rules for this matchup. We do say that the characters start about 50 yards, 50 meters apart.
They don't know anything about each other, save for that the other one is a threat that needs to be put down.
And they fight in an environment that plays no factor in the battle itself.
Right, because we don't take stats for the environment. The characters have to win on their own merits. So let's go ahead and get into it. Iron versus Colossus. They start out 50 yards apart from each other. Who goes first? Well, Colossus is kind of like a pacifist. He's kind of like a peaceful character, so I don't think he's going to charge headstrong into this battle.
Iron absolutely will.
Yeah?
He is the headstrong, let's go into battle member of the Metal Men.
Okay.
So Iron starts off by transforming his fists into like giant sledgehammers, and he turns his legs into a coiled spring, which he uses to bounce toward Colossus. Hammers first.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty good. All right. So Iron swings these hammers, and Colossus raises up his fist in defense, and he gets smashed. Come on, it's not going to hurt him that bad. His skin is made out of osmium steel, right? He uses his palms and he presses against the hammerheads, and he pushes them apart and out from him, and he headbutts Iron right in the face and leaves a big old dent in his skull.
Okay, so that causes Iron to like shift back into his like normal robotic form, and he has like this Colossus shaped dent in his face. So then he just like sticks his thumb in his mouth and then like blows really hard, and his face pops back to normal.
Okay, so Iron is just as indestructible as Colossus is, but in a different manner.
Right.
Well, this will be interesting.
And once he's reformed, that's when he like grapples Colossus and transforms into like this giant hydraulic press. And then he just like starts crushing Colossus down into like...
Okay, well, for a hydraulic press to be most effective, you need to focus a lot of PSI on one particular area. I don't think he would have enough force to crush all of Colossus's body, but he may be trying to crush, like, I don't know, Colossus's hand or something like that.
His head.
His head?
Yeah.
Okay, so Colossus is like feeling the pressure against his head from this hydraulic press, and what he does is he reaches up and he breaks the press with his strength, and he reaches out and he grabs Iron and kind of like constricts him, crushes him into like this squared cube, kind of like how they do at the car junkyards.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he drop kicks and punts Iron right up into the stratosphere.
Okay, does he punt him like straight up above him?
No, I mean like it's, you know, it's like in an arc kind of thing.
Okay, well that's when Iron transforms into like an airfoil, okay? So then he just starts gliding towards Colossus. And right when he's over Colossus, he turns into like a giant anvil and just like drops straight down on him.
What is he, Kirby from Smash Brothers?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the anvil lands on Colossus's head. It's probably a big, heavy anvil that kind of probably smashes Colossus into the ground like a hammer to a nail.
Exactly.
All right. So Colossus's legs are probably stuck in the ground, and his head is like really concussed. And in a daze, he grabs the anvil and starts slamming it into the ground, creating like these small tremors that break the ground up and free him from the ground so
What?
he can get out.
Okay, well, there's no way Iron is just gonna let him do it. As Colossus is smashing Iron into the ground, that's when Iron transforms into like these huge arm restraints and just like binds Colossus's hands together.
Okay, so Colossus's hands are bound, but he just like slams these restraints on his knee, and so he's just like slowly but surely cracking into the iron restraints until the restraints just break right in half on his knee. And then with his hands free, he starts punching his own fists together, which in essence is making Iron punch himself in a way.
Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Okay, Iron is pretty dazed by that. So right when Colossus is about to like slam his fists together again, Iron just kind of like tumbles off of his hands, causing Colossus to slam his own fists together.
Ow.
Which really hurts. But it also creates a shockwave that sends them both flying apart from each other.
Yeah, I imagine it would sound like a loud clang.
Now at this point, Iron's gonna turn into a drill. And I think I did the same exact thing with Metamorpho. But he's gonna turn into a drill and then go into the ground, and now he's just like drilling towards Colossus.
All right. Well, Colossus doesn't know what to do. He runs over to the hole where Iron went into, and he peeks his head over the hole.
Big mistake, my friend.
Why?
I don't know yet. Because while he was in the hole, Iron turned into like a piston, which just like fired right up at Colossus's face, knocking him onto his back.
No, Colossus saw it coming because he, peeked over the hole wearily. And as the piston shot up, Colossus quickly grabbed it, yanked it out of the ground, and does like a backward body slam wrestling move and just slams Iron into the ground with not only the force of his strength, but also the force in which Iron shot up out of the hole.
Interesting move.
Yeah. And then Colossus just drops into him elbow first, like shattering the piston and exposing Iron's responsometer.
Oh shit.
Colossus sees this like little microchip.
It's not that little of a microchip.
Oh, really?
It could fit in your hand.
Okay. Well, he sees this thing that doesn't look like the rest of the things. So he's assuming that, hey, this must be this robot's brain.
Uh-huh.
So he reaches for it.
Okay, so just to clarify, how intact is Iron at this point?
Well, I mean, he has a few pieces missing from him. Colossus made a big old crack into him when he dropped into him with the elbow that has exposed the responsometer. But largely, he's still mostly intact, I think, is how I imagine it.
Okay, because Iron's not like Mercury. Like, he can't just, like, liquefy his body and pull it all together,
Yeah.
It takes a little bit more effort than that. But if he's still mostly intact, his metal will cover up the responsometer pretty quickly. So yeah, Colossus got a peek at it, but he's not getting to that thing yet.
Okay.
Iron seals up the crack to cover up his responsometer before Colossus can get it, and he transforms his hand into a wrecking ball, like on a chain, and just starts spinning around, knocking into Colossus over and over again and pushing him back away from him.
Oh, that's a pretty good move. Well, Colossus is getting like pushed back, but the wrecking ball keeps spinning, right?
Right.
And so Colossus just like plays tetherball with the thing. He punches the wrecking ball as it's swinging at him, and he punches the wrecking ball right into Iron's own body.
Oh, jeez.
And then he presses the attack and charges toward Iron.
Okay, well, Iron is back in his robot form, and he meets the challenge. Except as Colossus approaches him, his arms are now a jackhammer. So Colossus runs right into his jackhammer forearms, and Iron's just pounding into Colossus. And he makes Colossus fall over, and he's just pounding him into the ground.
Colossus is getting pounded into the ground. He reaches up, breaks the jackhammer, pulls Iron towards him, smashes him in the face, grabs his responsometer, and crushes it in his hands.
Except Colossus doesn't know where the responsometer is. He could have it in his ass.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically, he spends the rest of the time trying to figure out where this responsometer is.
Yeah.
And Iron keeps like shifting it through his body and attacking back. That's probably a good place to end this match before finding out the winner. Let's go ahead and run the simulations and find out which of these two characters won this particular scenario.
All right, that was a fun match. I'm glad I went with Iron.
Yeah. I mean, the other metal men, they all have different like tricks up their sleeves. Like I know Platinum can get really sharp, and Mercury is like super liquidic.
Is that a word?
Liquidy? But I think Iron was a good mix between the two, and he's super strong. So
Right.
It worked out well. Now, statistics-wise, these two characters were not quite as close as I thought they would be. I mean, they're similar in terms of their like movement speed.
But when it came to strength, we actually found that Colossus was stronger.
Yeah, and Colossus was a better fighter, and he was more durable.
but Iron has a greater range and evasiveness stat due to his elasticity.
So they kind of compensated for each other. I really think that this is going to be a close match. I have no idea who's going to win. But we polled Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, 67% of the responders said that Colossus would win. And on Instagram, 71% of the responders said that Colossus would win. So a lot of people are rooting for Colossus, as am I. That's who I hope and I think is going to win this match.
We'll have the results right here. The winner of this week's duel is Iron.
No! No!
Yeah,
What?
Surprisingly.
Why?
So it's his evasive and range stat. He's just so much higher in those categories than Colossus. He's barely lower than Colossus in a bunch of categories, but he really shined brighter in range and evasiveness.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Iron won 56.2% of the 1,000 matches. Colossus won 438.
Wow, that's not that close. I mean, well, it's not as close as I wanted it to be. So it's because he's a liquid metal, basically, that he beats Colossus. So this is like Terminator versus T-1000, essentially.
Oh, yes. I didn't even think about it that way. Now it makes sense why Iron would win.
I guess, yeah, T-1000 would normally beat T-800. Fuck, this was just a bad matchup then. I didn't even think about the advantages that a liquid metal character would have over a solid metal character. Ruined my fucking day. Why don't you?
Ruined your week, I'm pretty
whole
sure.
Week. God. Colossus is still my boy. I don't care what you say. I want to go cry.
Yeah, I know he has a lot of fans out there, and I hate to disappoint you guys, but DC's just better.
No.
Like, just come over to our side already.
No one even knows who Metal Man is. Okay, we're at the point now where we've gone through every A-list and B-list DC character, and now we're just on the nobodies. Marvel still has, like, 20 more A-list characters to go through. That's what makes us better. People know who Colossus is. Barely anyone knows who Iron and the Metal Men are.
Just because they're less popular doesn't mean they can't kick your ass.
All right, that does it for this episode, guys. Go ahead and let us know what you thought about this matchup by reaching out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or you can email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget that on social media, you can also share your favorite episode of this podcast to become entered into a drawing where we're giving away the full 4-issue miniseries of the DC vs. Marvel 90s event.
Yeah, honestly, like, it hurts to give that away because I want it for myself, but it's like the perfect prize for our show.
Right, because it introduces the concept of the DC and Marvel brothers, basically, these entities that pit the universes against each other. So again, you have until Thanksgiving this month, 2019. Share us, tag us, and become eligible to win.
Also, don't forget to visit us on dynamicduel.com, where you can not only listen to our podcast, but you could also find a link to our merchandise store, which is on TeePublic, and check out some of the t-shirts and phone cases and pins and stickers that we sell. There's a ton of sales going on this month.
Right, leading up to the holidays. If you haven't checked us out on TeePublic, now would be the time to do it. Because the new merchandise that we're adding to the store for this week is the Metal Men.
I think it's just going to be one of them.
Really?
Maybe gold. Or platinum. I'll do platinum.
You're not going to draw all of them? That's lame. I'm not going to buy that shit.
You wouldn't anyway.
Well, we do have a Colossus shirt. I'll just buy that.
That works. Don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us. So if you're able to, please rate us on iTunes. Again, that's what Rotten Tomatoes is looking for in order for us to become eligible to become critics on that platform.
Right. I have it all calculated out. There are 9 weeks left in this year. We have to average a little over 3.5 ratings each episode if we want to make it to our goal of 200 before the year's end.
It would be a Christmas miracle. In our next episode, we will be reviewing X2 X-Men United.
Right, and we're doing that because this is the first movie that Colossus made a live-action appearance in. Although he made his best appearances in the Deadpool films, we've already reviewed those. But I'm a big fan of the X2 movie and really excited to be reviewing it next week.
That does it for this episode. Up and away.
True believers.